We're live. L'chaim, l'chaim, bracha. Today's learning is in honor of Ile Nishmas, for the soul, first yard site of Yitzhak ben Shalom. May his neshama have an aliyah. Some things in life you got to try out. Everybody has a bucket list, right? What's on your bucket list that you want to try out in life? Someone tell me if it's working on YouTube properly. Oh, Kenya, Tim, you're on YouTube, right? Must be working properly. Let me know. So, the things that you want to experience, you want to do, you want to engage in, right? Everybody has things. Well, the following learning is something that I suggest you got to be careful with. We're holding by chapter 29 of Tanya. And if we've incorporated what we've learned till now, halavai, so be it. And then, chapter 29 has its place. But if we haven't incorporated things till now, and even what we're going to learn now, it's going to sound very extreme. So we're going into the next chapter with caution. With caution that the teachings, I want to make sure that I give it over properly, that you appreciate that there's a value that has for you too, but maybe not in the harshness the way the Alter Rebbe describes. But we'll see. You just begin today the idea. Well, welcome to Tanya Today. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from Chabad Zurich and Kadesh in Montreal, Canada. It's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you Tanya. So, chapters 26 through 28 dealt with how do you make sure that you have joy constantly in your life, not to be derailed by health issues, livelihood issues, family issues, things that are out of your control. How not to be derailed even by the things you do have control, which is over yourself, over your thoughts in particular, that sometimes, thoughts of anxiety, thoughts of negativity, and how to deal with them. So we went at length in the discussion. Now, what happens, and it can happen to us from time to time, I'm sure we've all experienced it, that it's hard to have this joy, and we need joy in order to battle ourselves. We need the joy, not so I could feel good about myself. That's an important point. The joy is not so I could feel good about myself. The joy is in order that I could be good. And it's hard to be good when you're not full of joy. It's very hard. So what happens now if we have a dullness of heart? And it's hard to have the We all have those moments, right? So we don't have that joy in the service of God. We're not. Our heart is turned to stone when it comes to prayer, for example. That's a perfect example because prayer is in the heart, about the heart. And it can happen that we're not, we even try to think about God. We even try to meditate upon our relationship with God. And there's no spontaneity, there's no sense of feeling of connection. Now, of course, this is going to be shades of gray in what I'm talking about, right? More or less, this and that. So there'll be the dullness of heart, more or less of a connection, and particularly through prayer. But what happens if the evil impulse takes control of me to do things that are permissible, but it's hard to sanctify myself in permitted matters. I'm, I'm not in complete control. It's in control of me, things. So what do you do? So again, I give this with a precautionary note. Don't try this at home without um, guidance, whether it's from me or from someone else. But be careful because this could bring you down you know, a place where you could really become down. So, so the advice in the Holy Zohar is given as follows. It speaks with the president of the Academy of Gan Eden. Look at that. They have a president of Gan Eden. Said, a wooden beam with divine providence. We just spoke about wooden beams that crush him in our Chumash and Rashi class, right? This week's Torah portion. And today's teaching specifically about the beams that were made from acacia wood to create the Mishkan, the home for God, the tabernacle. Wow. But here there's a different kind of beam. It's a huge beam you have, right? And you want it to catch fire, but it's too big. It doesn't catch on. So what do you do? Now, you have little twigs and so on, so you can make a smaller fire and make a bigger fire. But let's say it ain't working. And this is a metaphor, of course. So, you know, we, we're using it for metaphorical purposes. You are taking the fire and it will not catch on to the beam because the beam is too thick, too big. So what do you got to do? Well, chop it up into smaller pieces. Then the fire will take to the beam. That's the metaphor. What does that mean? The fire of your soul, the light of your soul is not illuminating you. And who are you? Like that beam, your body, your physical being is too big. I don't mean physically big, obviously, but it's just I'm taking up too much space. I'm too, my body is just, I'm feeling the weight of my being, the physical body or the ego, whatever it is. I mean, it stems from ego. I'm feeling that. And therefore, when I try to meditate and think about God, or try to pray and connect to God, I'm having a challenge. I'm having a difficulty. It ain't working. The fire of my soul is not catching on to me. I'm just a big log, dead weight. That's how I'm feeling. What are you going to do? You've got to splinter yourself. What does that mean? My body is being too coarse. It's just not getting ignited with the connection, the love, the passion. the connection to God. So I have to now take that coarseness, that crassness in my heart, which is the arrogance of the klipa, of the animal soul that exalts itself above the holy light of my divine soul, to obscure my divine soul and leave it in the dark. So I have to crush it. I have to cast it down. Like in the analogy, you have to splinter the beam so it'll catch fire. What does that mean? So Alter explains we have to set aside times. To set aside time. You just don't do it like that. Then I think to myself that I'm not so refined. There's a Hayayim that says just an unrefined person thinks they're refined. A refined person doesn't think that way because they see that there's things that are lacking, right? So you got to set aside appointed times for humbling yourself and considering yourself, you know, that, hey, not so great. Now, you are great. You're whole, you're complete, and you're worthy. That's who you are, but not what you're doing. And here we're talking about your heart is dull and you want to allow the flame of your soul to ignite you. So this is a method to, to, to crush the negativity from within, the klipa of my animal soul, so it should not, be dominant over me and not allow my godly soul to shine. So in a broken heart, then when you at these appointed times that you humble yourself by considering yourself, you know, you ain't so great. A broken heart leads to a broken spirit, and then you break that spirit within you of your sitaracha, of your negative side. And that's the Beinani. Um, which the very person of the individual of us is the fact that, our first responder in life is our animal soul. Our first sensibility is, what's good for me, what serves my interest, which is my animal soul. And that's who I am. That's who I am on the experiential level. That's not who you are in core essence, right? We're not talking about your core essence right now. We're talking about your functioning. You're not functioning with a passion, with uh, you know, your divine soul is, not not completely illuminated. So, and what's the proof, by the way, that the divine soul is not my experience? Because we say in the morning blessings, Aneshama Tahira Shenasatabi, the pure soul you put in me. So there's in me before you put in the pure soul in me. So who's in me? My animal soul. That's there first. As I said, it's the first responder to all experience in life. Is you take it, you know, um, what's good for me has to benefit me. What are the triggers here that are difficult for me? You know, is there, fight or flight over here? That's me and you, and that's a Beinani, even, not the righteous. The righteous, on the contrary, the person themselves is their pure soul. Why? Because they've transformed their animal soul and it's pure now. Like Hillel, The elder, when he went to go eat, he would say, come, speaking to his body, lowly self, lowly, um, poor creature, let's feed you. Like he would say to your dog, come, I'm going to feed you, right? Lowly poor creature needs to be fed. Well, that's the body. Lowly poor creature needs to be fed. He didn't look at that's me. When I need to eat, I don't think of myself a poorly low creature. My body, no, I need to eat. Before teaching, I sometimes I don't eat before teaching, and then I don't have the energy. I don't have the brain needs energy, and sometimes I lack in energy. So I eat. I'm not thinking, let me feed my poor. Now I'm eating so I could better teach. Okay, that's what we're talking about over here. Um, we're talking about over here, what's the experience? What are you're sensing? So a righteous person senses their body to be like foreign to them. It's not really them. They're a divine soul. All right. Okay. Let me take care of you. We don't feel that way. We feel I'm taking care of me. Right. That's what we feel. And that's why we have to humble the me. I have to humble that. Right. That the animal soul, that me and me, right? Which is not my true essential definition, but it's the functionality right now that we're dealing with. And the functionality I have now, dullness of heart, is coming from this. And if I'm very serious about my divine service, so I want to crush that negativity. And therefore, that part in me that is my first responder, it's the me of me functionally, not essentially, right? Um, is that animal soul is removed from God. It's remote. The lusting drive that the animal soul has, that's even capable of wanting forbidden things. Now, the baiting, he doesn't do it in practice. He's not giving into any of that. But the very fact that, you know, it's a part of him. Oops, I went too far. Hmm. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I went too far. So folks, be careful with this, please. TRC, we can, talk more about this kind of stuff. All right. Does fasting to sometimes, I don't know, be careful with fasting, okay? We're not a generation to fast. Be careful, please. To push off breakfast 10 minutes. We spoke about that at the end of chapter 27. That's an amazing feat. Just for 10 minutes, push it off. I mean, and do a mitzvah at that time, to learn Tanya, right? Push that off. That is an amazing feat. But to fast, I know. I don't think we should be doing that. I don't see questions. Oh, Jeff. So how do we crush our animal soul when the arrogance heart beam when the arrogance and the hard beam feeling happens. So thank you, Jeff. So we got to be careful. Don't do it when you're at that moment. The Alter Rebbe said set aside a time, because if you set aside a time, you're going to do it with a calmness. If you're going to do it in a moment like you're feeling bitter about something, and then you're going to go into, crushing your negativity. It won't be good. It'll come out sideways. It'll come out in a negative way because you were in the throes of something negative. So negative plus negative equals negative. But if you, okay, I got to deal with this. Now is not the time. Later on, whatever, at the end of the day or the end of the work day or my lunch break, I'm going to go through and deal with it in a calmness, all right, and think to myself, I've got this negativity in me that could be a trigger, which leads to a negativity. But the real negativity is over here. It's just the animal soul itself. And I think to myself, I have to get whatever I want. If I'm desiring something, really? I'm better than that. The animal soul, because it wants something, I have to give in to it. You think to yourself, right? I'm for sure better than that, right? Now, functionally, maybe I'm at this moment not better than that, but I am. And that part in me, or for example, you get triggered when your spouse, your child says something to you, or a friend says something to you. And usually, we blame them, but no, take it inside. That trigger it's your trigger, and think, really? Like I'm so full of myself, I'm so arrogant because that person says something so it hurt my feelings. Really? No, I can't rise above that. I have to, you know, accept my triggers, like, that's me. No, that's me who I got to work on, and I got to crush that. Come on, be embarrassed. I'm embarrassed of myself that I allow such a thing to trigger me. This is a conversation to yourself, not to someone else. No one's saying it to you. Conversation to yourself. I'm embarrassed to myself. You're not saying it to anybody. You're saying it to yourself. We're going to go more into it. This is just the beginning. Is guilt part of the animal soul? Yes. This is not guilt, by the way. I feel guilty. Feel guilty is going to make you sad. We're going to learn more about it, right? Trouble getting over the guilt when I do something negative. It's very hard to feel about oneself and causing a disconnection. Okay, thank you, Davida. Very good. So we got to be careful when when we do something wrong. That's exactly what the animal soul wants to do. We learned that in chapter 27. It wants to make me feel guilty, because by making me feel guilty, it's going to bring me further down a slippery slope. So guilt is the animal soul that has feeling, bad about what you did. But the guilt is just to bring you down a slippery slope so, that you'll binge on, comfort food, or you'll just, feel bad about yourself and sad, and whatever it is, but it's just to bring you down. So we have to get rid of guilt. We have to crush the guilt, get rid of it. It doesn't belong. Ownership, yes, right? Ownership, and that, yeah, that's embarrassing to speak that way. Like, even to say it's embarrassing, you know what? That's also not good because that's the animal soul's embarrassed. So it's not about embarrassment. I take that back. You know what it is? Your animal soul. I got my animal soul, my trigger. I'm much better than that. That's a disgusting thing. I'm acting disgusting when I'm doing that. And it might be a small thing. It may not be so terrible, but the more um, refined you are, the more you find that that small thing is really, yeah. By the way, that's good only for yourself, not for someone else. In relationships, you know what happens is a spouse finds in their spouse, they amplify things and make a small thing into a huge mountain. Huge mountain. That's all animal soul. Now, how should the spouse take it? Maybe the spouse should take it as a huge mountain rather than a small thing. Maybe then that will help to crush it. But it's not right for the spouse to make something from a small thing because of the trigger that they have to something. But how do you accept it? You could accept it as a big thing and therefore crush it. That that's not easy. What a paradox that is. There's the person that's giving it, that's their trigger, their issue, their problem. And never you just say that. That's their problem. The fact that they're saying it to you means you got to take something from it. And you got to take something from it. And you got to work on it and they're making a mountain out of it. So, and somehow you could take a mountain from it in order to crush whatever needs to be crushed that's negative. But that's a real talent. Well, we'll have more on this to come. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you for Chabad Zich and Kadesh Montreal, Canada. It's a privilege, a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. Rambam is coming up. We're coming up to the Siyum, the conclusion of the 14 books of all of Maimonides' teachings, was the teachings of the entire Torah. Come join us.